Hi, everyone. Roger Knack, President, Universal Accounting Center, and I'm excited to have with us today Laura Sheperd. She happens to actually own and operate. She founded the company My Top Bookkeeper, and this is going to be one of these discussions where I think we really get a lot of information as to not only her story, but the journey she's been on. So with that being said, Laura, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get to know you and get to share some about who we both are.
Well, thank you. The feeling's mutual. This is going to be fun. So let's start just obviously with the background, your story. What brought you into accounting? How did you get started into the profession?
Well, after you asked me that question, the other day, something to consider, I started going backwards, and I thought maybe third grade might have gone a little bit too far back. But I used
The
to,
abacus might be the giveaway. I don't know that the abacus counts.
yeah, taking the math homework home over the summertime. They had the extra pages you could work on, and I would actually take those home over the summertime and do math because I liked math.
Good.
But a more realistic first experience was in college. I was my first desk job. I was a receptionist in a small company in Tempe, Arizona. And my immediate supervisor was the controller for the business. Now this was so old. This was, back in the mid 80s. And so one of my tasks is he would come out with the general ledger book, the 16 column pad, canvas cover general ledger book. And it was my task to go through each ledger page and carry the numbers down, total them down, and then go through the ledger book and make sure that it all balanced at the end. And I was fascinated by that. And it was like that, the sleuth, the detective, trying to find out and make sure it worked. One penny would make me crazy. So that was kind of my, one penny being off, and I just couldn't stand it. So that was kind of my first venture into actually doing some bookkeeping tasks. I didn't know what it meant back then, but I had fun doing it.
Well, one of the things that I just love about this is the fact that we're both old enough to remember that kind of bookkeeping, literally working with a book and recording those transactions. And as you're recording them and carrying them over, you're experiencing, like you said, the balance. You wanted to find that last penny. And I think that is a good indicator of your love, because obviously you started this way back when you were younger. You got introduced to it, not even knowing that it was necessarily a profession. And with that, you kind of got your exposure. So what then took you from that to now kind of getting the formal education that you received?
Well, I actually got my degree in business management. And I really loved the business management side. So after graduating and having a few years in business, I really started to hone in on accounting as part of that business operations. I was a chief operations officer for a business, so I had to be responsible for every aspect of that business and really honing in on the budgeting aspect of it and building that financial part of it. I just got really good at it, and I started to realize I have a knack. I just have a knack for looking at something, a financial picture, and saying there's something that's not quite right here, or we can maximize, we can do something different here. My team actually calls me the number whisperer. I didn't make that up. They assigned that to me because I just have this sixth sense. But through my career, and I was 29-ish, and I really just developed that love for accounting and started focusing in on that. So yeah.
Well, that sixth sense that you've referred to, I know individuals that have that. I've oftentimes gone to a meeting where I've produced the financial reports for the year or the quarter. I've gone into the meeting presuming that I've identified everything that I need to, or at least researched everything I needed to know. And then I go in, and lo and behold, this particular gentleman would ask me a question that just, how did I either miss that, or how did it not stand out? So I've seen that and experienced it. It gives you a greater appreciation for the numbers, and it forces you to get even deeper into them when you see someone that can identify something like that. So that's kudos that it just comes natural to you, that everyone else is able to point that out. So let me kind of go through now your experience to, you've got the training, you got the business degree, and at some point you obviously had that epiphany to start your own business. So tell me about what it was that caused you to start your own company.
Well, great question. I've always been an entrepreneur, like my whole life, even like I said, back way, way, way back. And so as I was honing in the overall business understanding and really bringing that accounting piece into it, that love of numbers that I've always had, that basic knowledge that I developed very early on of seeing how things had to come together to really create that bigger piece, and then applying that in real world scenarios, having to pull all of that together to be able to run a business. When that kind of all clicked for me, at the same time, I started a new job, and with that job was a software development company, and they had international locations. And when I started working with them, they were using QuickBooks to write checks. And everything else they did for accounting was outside of QuickBooks. It was being done manually. And so it was my job to bring that all into an automated accounting system and then make it all work. And when I started working with them, the CPA firm that had been working with them for years, and this was one of those clients that they they would just like, knew it was coming at tax time, but was hesitant because I knew it was coming at tax time. The work product that I produced, the financial reports that I was able to produce, cut down on their work and their stress so significantly, they wanted to know who I was.
Oh.
And it was just a very successful story. And then when I decided to go out on my own from there, I took on that former employer as my first client, which was awesome. And then as soon as I said to those CPA firms, I am going out on my own, they immediately started referring clients to me because they knew what they were going to get. And it just snowballed from there.
Well, I love the fact that you were able to acquire as your first client your current or previous employer, only because that's a common story that I've heard. People get to this point where they choose to go off on their own, and then the employer realizes, well, that means I've got to interview and hire and find and train someone new. Why don't we just pay you to do it? And all of a sudden you've got this client, and it's your first client, and it's a good working relationship. But now it changes from you're being an employee to you're being a peer, and more importantly, you've got this relationship where they're a vendor, a supplier, a vendor client kind of relationship. So the one thing I wanted to also draw out is the fact that as you started to go, people were referring to you and you grew your business. How did that feel to see that you took that leap of faith and it was working out?
Well, honestly, I kind of had a little bit of someone behind my back that I couldn't fail. My husband was right there behind me going, we got this, do whatever you want to do, but we got this. And he knew, he had that faith in me that, we weren't going to have to look back. But having that professional recognition, that's a huge confidence builder. When somebody calls you and says, I need you, I'm choosing you because of what you can bring to the table, that's a kind of I've arrived moment,
Agreed.
and we don't take that lightly. I have never taken that vote of confidence lightly. And that too, kind of like you're putting forth your best, absolute best when you know somebody else trusts you that much with their livelihood.
So in the course of now growing your business and taking on these clients, can you share with us a story of how you feel you actually made a difference, a positive impact on one of your clients and what their experience was?
That's a tough question, not to sound arrogant, but there's just so many that I love and that I'm really proud of. Currently, I'm working with a client that they're being acquired by a large investor and another large company. And the fact that I've been able to contribute to developing the processes with them, the accounting processes and the operational contributions together, that show how well, their operations are going. We're able to represent that, demonstrate that to them and their investor, so that the investor is going, yeah, I really want to be part of this. We've contributed to that because we've taken what the operational results are and put them in a format, accounting standard format, and we're able to substantiate it. And somebody says, yeah, I want to be part of that. I mean, that's
awesome.
what we do. That's the highest mark of what we can do, is helping somebody go further and achieve their goals, their business goals.
Well, one of the things that I think we can all experience is, as we're working with our clients, is we help them achieve their goals. And I think oftentimes one of the things I witness is we're able to help them realize them quicker than they may have anticipated, but also we can make the process a lot less cumbersome. It's very seamless. And the information we're giving them, I believe, makes it a very realistic thing that they can make more intelligent business decisions just because of the confidence they have through the numbers we're providing. So I like how you describe that. Now, with that being said, what advice would you have for someone that may be considering or having already just started, but in the beginning stages of growing and offering accounting services? What advice would you have for them, having yourself gone through that process of starting your own company?
I would say invest in yourself early and build your confidence now. Having really built your skill set, knowing that you've invested in building your skill set, accounting knowledge, the accounting principles, understanding the accounting principles, developing your skill set, being able to take those understanding of principles, gathering the information, and marrying those two together to complete the tasks and produce the reports that you need to. And understanding the importance of that from your client's perspective. What is your client going to do with the work that you produce? What they should be able to do with it is protect their interests, protect their investments, and know that those interests are being protected because you're demonstrating to them on paper what's happening with their money, what's happening with their operations. So investing in their own knowledge, developing their own knowledge, developing their skill set. So when they sit down in front of a client to propose, this is what I'm going to do for you, not I'm going to do your accounting, I'm going to get your account, I'm going to do your data entry, I'm going to reconcile it. They can go in and go, I'm going to help you protect your livelihood, and here's how. That's a whole different ballgame. So really developing that ability now to have that kind of confidence, do it now rather than wait 20 years until you develop it organically. I've learned a lot organically.
Well, the thing that I love about what you just described there is really the word confidence. I've worked with so many people, and that confidence comes from so many places. But the point that I'd like to make is you need to be able to look a business owner in the eye and with confidence say, I can take care of your accounting needs. I can provide these services. And unless you can do that confidently, looking that business owner peer to peer in the eye, I think that doubt that kind of slips in really sabotages your ability to get them as a client. And so that confidence is essential for your success. So I like how you've described that. And to get that confidence, it does vary. I've seen people at various levels. It can be for one person, 5 years experience. It could be for another person, 10 years experience. For one person, it's becoming a CPA. For another person, it's becoming a certified professional bookkeeper. I mean, it depends on where it is. But regardless of what it took to get there, until you're confident, it doesn't matter. I've worked with numerous people that are CPAs, accountants with numerous years of experience. But when it comes from a place of having done corporate accounting for years, and now you're offering small business accounting services, if you're not confident in your ability to take over the books of business from another accounting professional, or take over the books of business from a business owner who's been doing it on their own, and you really have to take over those books of business, and in some instances even create them from scratch. If you don't know how to do these things, it's hard to then offer quality accounting services just because you say, I had a degree that I got 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's more of a question of, have you done it to the point that you're confident in the services you're about to provide, because they're going to pay you for them. And it's not enough to just simply say, well, I'm an accountant. It's enough to say, I'm confident I can take care of your needs. I know what I'm doing, and that's very essential. So I like that. That was excellent advice. So what would you say to someone who, like you, has an established accounting firm, has employees, they're taking on and working with clients? What advice would you have for them?
Who's already doing it?
Yes.
Always take a step back and reassess what you're doing. You might have been doing the same thing for 10 years and it's working well for you, but take a step back and kind of walk through it again, because you're going to learn something now when you're explaining it out loud, walking through it again. You're going to learn something about it that you can change the way that you're doing it. I'm going through this process of developing a module just to help people take the knowledge, take the skill set, and apply it in real life scenarios, okay? And you always have an opportunity to learn, even if it's something that you think you already know. So, for example, being able to explain to a client what it is that we do. And that shift, as I just gave an example, instead of going in and saying, okay, we're going to do your bookkeeping for you. Okay, well, they don't really understand what that means. And so it gets lumped into this very task-oriented perspective, you know? And looking at what we do now and explaining it now, I explain it in a completely different way. Because bookkeeping is not just about tasks. Bookkeeping is completing tasks. But the value, everybody talks about value, the value comes when I can apply my accounting education and my knowledge of accounting principles to your business and tell you how that, you know, what you need to do with that, what you need to do with the numbers that are coming out, and what's important about that. So always look back at what you've already done and see, is there something I can do differently? And even just saying out loud, this is the way I do this, you might go, wait a minute, why am I doing it that way? You know, aren't I telling somebody else that you should be doing it differently? You know, so
Yep.
assessing yourself, don't be afraid to kind of, you know, look at yourself under a microscope and go, is this the best way now? Should I do it differently?
Yeah, I like what you're sharing, because we should always be in that state of working on our business. And even
Yeah.
though we've acquired some level of success and we're doing well, it doesn't mean we can't do it better. And so that's important. And I also believe that because of how the profession changes, what may have been working last year may not be working this year. And so we always have to be on our toes and seeing what does the client need, what does the market need, and how can we meet that. So I like how you describe that. So here's an interesting question for you regarding the advice you'd give to yourself. Obviously, you started a business, you've gone down this path, it's years and years later. Here you sit in the position that you are now, really, in essence, trying to give back to the accounting community in many ways. But what would you just say to your younger self in regards to this journey you've been on? What would you tell someone back in the 80s or 90s as they were finishing their degree? What would you say to yourself as you finished college, knowing your journey that you've now had?
You don't know as much as you think you do. And the people who are giving you advice that you think, yeah, that was you back then, but now, follow their advice, give it some thought, walk away and at least consider it. When I was just starting out and just building my business, in fact, I was at a conference for the NACPB program, National Association Certified Professional Bookkeepers. Great program, certification program. Back then, it was wonderful. I went to a conference in Las Vegas and we were going through just kind of a recap. And he said, focus on a niche. Focus on a niche. Develop your skill set in this one niche. And I thought back then, but that's so limiting. that limits me to one thing when I can do all of these, so much more. I don't want to limit myself. That he gave good advice. Really develop yourself and understanding one thing and really becoming an expert in that one thing. When you start to go into another area, then you're going to take that level of expertise into that other area. You're not going to kind of know this one and kind of know this one and kind of know this one, because you're just setting yourself up for having to put way more effort into it than you wouldn't otherwise have to do. And find a mentor. Find somebody that you can go to and say, what do I do in this situation? Somebody that you can trust. It's hard to find some people sometimes, but really try to find a mentor who's done it before you have. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I actually am a very big advocate of coaching. Every program that we offer, all the courses that everyone's able to enroll in, for all the different coaches. In each of them, you have an expert that you can rely upon that is someone that knows the intimacies of and the details of that program and how to use those and apply them in your business. So I completely agree. You need a coach. It's not enough to just read it or study it. It's a matter of implementing it and doing so effectively. So what do you think is changing in the accounting profession? What do you believe is on the horizon in the coming years that we need to keep our eye on?
I think that the virtual world is not a good place for service providers like us. There's so many people who don't understand the scope of what bookkeeping is, as I mentioned earlier. The big misconception is they think it's just tasks, just completing tasks, not applying that greater sense of knowledge. And as the virtual world grows, more applications are coming out there. I mean, Intuit, QuickBooks is now saying, hey, come to us and we'll set up your QuickBooks program for you and you can do this. That is all about operating a software program and massaging some data. But what does it need to look like and what should it represent? They don't talk about that. So all of these virtual scenarios about how easy it is just further compounds the concept that bookkeeping is so easy.
Yeah.
And I wish I could demonstrate, and actually in the module that I'm working on to help people understand bookkeeping, I put a profit and loss report right side by side with an 1120S page 1. And draw an arrow and see where that information comes from. And when it keeps getting diluted, when the marketplace keeps getting diluted by all of these easy right now fixes, it's just creating a really big problem. It's going to create data integrity issues. And I know people get out there and jump up and down about it's so easy, it's so this and so that. How many of them don't jump up and down when the IRS sends them a notice saying, hey, there's something wrong with your information over here? They're not out there jumping up and down about that or saying, that's what, guess what happened to me when I did this,
So one of the
there's
things
more challenges.
one of the things that I think is important to recognize is when you bring up the AI or artificial intelligence is we need to recognize that you can have one of two opinions, really. You can actually be very frustrated and fearful of the technology, or you can embrace and understand and become a master of it so as to help your clients best utilize it. And in instances that it's applicable, even use it in your own firm to help you simplify your own business model. But the point is you have to choose one of the two paths. And if you get frustrated and you become fearful of it, I think it's going to sabotage you. And I think it's going to paralyze you in your business. Whereas if you embrace it and find those applications and those softwares that are appropriate and useful to either your own business or your clients, it's going to then complement what you're doing. And in many instances, even simplify what you're doing, yet still allowing you to charge what you're worth. And now you've increased your profit margin. So in both instances, that's great. So thank you for all of that. Let me just ask, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Because what I'd like to do is just kind of end with a comment of you've got a community out there.
Yes, and before we move on from that previous comment about automation, one thing I wanted to add to that is what we accounting professionals bring with us to use those different applications and to maximize what those different platforms allow us to do. What those things miss is that attention to detail, the mindful, what somebody who has an education, a real life person, can look at that data and go, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Needing somebody who can bring that level of understanding. We have a client who has an automated system, and they have a secured courier service that picks up cash and takes it to the bank and deposits it to the bank. So they've got this, nice little automated system for recording all these things. The secured courier service literally deposited the wrong funds into our client's account. Somebody else's funds into the account. That bank feed picked it up, dropped it into their software program, into their accounting bank register. And nobody knew where it came from, because we know how to get down into those layers. We figured out it was the secured courier service that deposited funds into the wrong account. I mean, it takes somebody who can look at that and understand what's going on. That's the thing that I think we need to also really bring into this new virtual platform, is to help people understand the benefits, but also some of the risks.
So what I hear from that is you started at the beginning referring to a sixth sense that you have. And I think it's important that as accounting professionals, we strive to have that with our clients. And the only way you're going to notice those types of nuances is as an accounting professional, you do become very familiar with your clients' books. It's not just merely recording the transactions and saying enough's done. It's literally bothering and taking the time to really getting to know the business model, what your client does, how things flow. And it's there that the anomalies will stand out, giving you that sixth sense that you've referred to. So yeah, I think that's an excellent illustration of that. So I commented on a community you have. Why don't you make mention of that, and then we'll wrap things up here real quickly.
Sure. Thank you. So years ago, I realized that I wanted to provide my clients the level of experience and knowledge and skill that I have, but it's really hard to do that in an employee situation, and when the economy tanked back in 2008, 2009, I had an opportunity to step back and go, okay, what do I love about what we do and what makes me crazy about it? I didn't like being an employer. Hated it. But I wanted to find people out there who had my skill set. And I thought, what are the things that go really well, that are easy for me, but I don't like? And what are some of the other challenges in the marketplace? Well, I created this like co-op for bookkeepers. Those who come to the table with great challenges can benefit from somebody else's knowledge and experience, having already handled those things. So we really have this sense of community where we share our challenges, we share our knowledge, we offset those things together, and we all benefit. In this virtual marketplace where we have the relationships with CPAs and clients in the real world, those projects that come to us, we may need help from somebody who has that skill set in another state, who's not right here with us. We want to create opportunities for everybody, no matter what level of skill set they have. And also, it's very important to me to support local businesses, small local businesses, small business communities. And I want to have highly skilled bookkeepers in every small business community around the country, and I want to help them succeed. Our operational processes prove that they work. I want to be able to tell a new bookkeeper, here's what you need to do when you're getting started. Go through the startup phase. That's one thing that service people forget to do. Go through the startup phase and get those things in order, your service agreement in order, do all of those things. But if you can't, find somebody like me, find somebody like you who can help them. You know, so you're cutting down that 20-year learning period to more of a 5-year learning period, you know, whatever. But that's how we as a community can work together, bringing in the resources we know work, offsetting the challenges that other people may have, and growing together a really strong, highly skilled group of bookkeepers.
Love it. I think at that point in Maslow's hierarchy of needs of getting that self-awareness where you're giving back, and I like how that's manifesting itself. And the one thing I would also mention is, there's no reason to try and recreate this wheel. There is definitely a business model, a turnkey business model. And when you talk about confidence, yes, you can go through and get the proper training. And more importantly, one of the mantras we have here at Universal Accounting Center is the ability to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And it's really emphasizing that with whichever program and whatever services you choose to offer, you can ultimately get assigned to you then also a practicing accountant, somebody that's literally doing this on their own, somebody that, like you as a peer, is implementing these services in their business effectively. You can be a certified professional bookkeeper, a professional tax preparer, a QuickBooks specialist, a profit first professional. You can be, obviously right here, a profit and growth expert or a certified value builder provider. Each of these are services that are within the accounting community that someone can offer with a great deal of success and profitably. And I like how you've described it. You don't have to be putting this to chance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description of this webinar the information that we've been discussing, how you too can actually take advantage of what Laura shared and really go into business for yourself, but not be by yourself, and really get the tools, the resources, and the support you need to be successful. And one of the things that I do always want to stress is, like we always say, if it's about accounting, it is universal. So that's important. So Laura, thank you for taking the time to share all these things. I loved your insights. I appreciate the journey you've been on and the successes you've had. This has just been a wonderful experience because accounting success is universal, and that's what we want to emphasize here. So thank you for taking the time and joining me with this.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Take care, everybody, and enjoy. And remember this, if it is about accounting, it is universal. Take care.